شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين. We continue to mourn the tragedy of the demise of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. We still continue to mourn the loss of this great Imam, this great individual, this great human being. What can we say about this Imam in the few minutes that we have? An Imam that was born, a man that was born in the Kaaba, the holiest of all places. No one before him was born in the Kaaba, and no one after him will be born in the Kaaba. A merit, a quality reserved only for Ali ibn Abi Talib. The first person to hold him and to care for him was Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayh. Thus, Amir al-Mu'mineen opened his eyes and he found Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayh. Rasulullah discovered Amir al-Mu'mineen, met Amir al-Mu'mineen from his first days. Amir al-Mu'mineen Nahj al-Balagha says that Rasulullah would feed me. I can smell Rasulullah as an infant. He would carry me as a father would carry his son. As a father would care for his son, Rasulullah would care for Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. And so the journey of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Rasulullah began. Rasulullah would never depart Amir al-Mu'mineen, and Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib would never depart Rasulullah. He grew up in the house of Rasulullah and Khadija, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayh, and Khadija alayhi salam. The day that Rasulullah was in Ghar Hira, in Ghar Hira, when Jibreel alayhi salam first came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayh and said his first words, اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق, Ali ibn Abi Talib was sitting next to him. Hence Rasulullah would tell him, إنك ترى ما أرى وتسمع ما أسمع إلا أنك لست بنبي. You hear what I hear and you see what I see, but you are not a prophet. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was either the first to believe in Rasulullah and to believe in Islam, or the second after Khadija. The first, among the first to believe. And Amir al-Mu'mineen was 10 years old, yet he stood with Rasulullah and he stood by his side. When Rasulullah went to pray for the first time in Masjid al-Haram, it was Amir al-Mu'mineen standing beside him, and it was Khadija alayhi salam standing behind them. Rasulullah would walk in the streets of Mecca calling people to Islam. The children of Quraysh would stone Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They would throw stones and pebbles to the point that he would bleed. Amir al-Mu'mineen was with him, Ali ibn Abi Talib. He would push away the kids and the children, and sometimes he would even bite their noses, the children of Quraysh, the children of these mushrikeen, to the point that Amir al-Mu'mineen was known as Qudam. Qudam, for biting their noses and punishing those who would stone Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his private bodyguard. And the day that Allah revealed to Rasulullah, وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, this is in Mecca. Ali ibn Abi Talib was still a teenager, maybe 13, 14 years old. Allah tells Rasulullah, وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, and warn your closest family members. Tell them about Islam, tell them about this religion, tell them about heaven and hell. Rasulullah invited his family members. He gathered them and he told them that this is Islam. This is the religion of Allah. This is the Quran. These are the Quranic verses. And then he stood up and he said, من منكم يؤازرني على هذا الأمر على أن يكون أخي ووصي وخليفتي فيكم. Who will stand and support me in this cause so that he will be my brother and my akhi, my brother, ووصي, and my heir, وخليفتي, and my successor amongst you? It was only Ali ibn Abi Talib who stood. Everyone ran away. None of the other family members wanted any association with Rasulullah. It was a new religion. Rasulullah was poor. Rasulullah was weak. His movement was still weak. So no one wanted to partake in this movement and this cause, and this new religion, except Ali ibn Abi Talib. He stood up. Rasulullah told him to sit down. Again, he repeated the question. Again, Amir al-Mu'mineen stood up. Finally, he took his hand and he said, إِنَّ هَذَا أَخِي وَوَصِيِّي وَخَلِيفَتِي فِيكُمْ فَاسْمَعُوا لَهُ وَأَطِيعُوهُ. This is my brother and my heir and my successor, so listen to him and obey him. Quraysh came to Abu Talib. They told him, Ya Abu Talib, your son has been made a leader and you have to obey your son. They were mocking Abu Talib, mocking him. They were mocking Rasulullah. They were mocking Ali ibn Abi Talib. They told him, you have to obey your son. Interestingly, Al-Tabari, he mentions this hadith in his Tarikh, because Tabari has two books, his history book and his tafsir book. In his history book, he mentions the full story that Rasulullah said, إِنَّ هَذَا أَخِي وَوَصِيِّي وَخَلِيفَتِي, that this is my brother, my heir, and my successor. But in his tafsir, in this verse, وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, in the tafsir of this verse in Surah Al-Shu'ara, if I am not mistaken, he says, Rasulullah held up the hand of Ali ibn Abi Talib and he said, إِنَّ هَذَا أَخِي وَإِلَى آخِرِهِ. He said, this is my brother and so and so. Look at when a scholar decides to hide the truth, what he does, how manipulative and how deceitful some scholars can be who hide the truth, and they lead millions, if not billions of people astray. They lead them to deviance. And whose fault is it? Who will be held accountable? Scholars like this, Al-Tabari. Amir al-Mu'mineen stood by the side of Rasulullah from day one until the day that Rasulullah decided to migrate from Medina to Mecca. That night, the night that Quraysh chose 12 members representing 12 clans from Quraysh to attack the house of Rasulullah in the middle of the night and to kill Rasulullah on his bed. Jibreel informed Rasulullah of this plan. Rasulullah decided to leave in the middle of the night, but he needed someone to sleep in his bed on his behalf. to be a decoy. Amir al-Mu'mineen said, I will do it, Ya Rasulullah. I will sleep. Will you accept to sleep in my bed and risk your life? Amir al-Mu'mineen said, yes, I will sleep. Will you be safe, Ya Rasulullah? He said, I will be safe. He said, khalas. Even if they kill me, I'm fine as long as you are safe. Amir al-Mu'mineen slept that night in the bed of Rasulullah while Rasulullah left. He left towards Medina. A hadith says that Allah told Jibreel and Mikael, he spoke to them. He told them, I have made you brothers. Which of you sacrifices his life for the sake of his brother? You, Ya Jibreel? He said, no. Mikael, you? He said, no. Although Allah made them brothers. أَخَيْتُ بَيْنَكُمَا. But they chose life and did not sacrifice their life for the other. He said, go down to Ali ibn Abi Talib and guard him. Look at Ali ibn Abi Talib. I made him the brother of Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. The brother of Rasulullah. And look at how he sacrifices his life for the sake of his brother. Go down and guard him. The angels came down and they said, Bakhin laka ya Ali. Congratulations, ya Ali. Inna Allah yubahi bika mala'ikat as-sama. Allah is telling the angels about you. Allah is proud of you. And He's telling the prophets about you. So they went down and they guarded him. Rasulullah went. He arrived to Medina, but he refused to enter the city. He remained in Quba, in the outskirts of Medina. He said, I am waiting for my brother Ali ibn Abi Talib to arrive. Rasulullah had told Ali ibn Abi Talib to return the amanat. Everything that Rasulullah was trusted with, money, gifts, he returned them. And he came to Medina with the three Fatimas. Fatima al-Zahra, Fatima bint Muhammad. Fatima وفاطمة نعم, two other Fatima, Al-Fawatim, two other Fatimas. He arrived to Medina. He arrived to the area of Quba. Then Rasulullah entered Medina. He wanted Ali ibn Abi Talib to be by his side. And indeed, Amir al-Mu'mineen never departed from the side of Rasulullah, never left Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. In Medina, Rasulullah founded an Islamic community. He founded an Islamic government. There were wars, there were battles. This was a very sensitive period. This was a very dangerous period in the history of Islam. Rasulullah needed someone to stand beside him. And there was no one better than Ali ibn Abi Talib. All historians agree, Shia and Sunni. No one stood beside Rasulullah and helped him and supported him and sacrificed his life for him more than Ali ibn Abi Talib. Look at it. Look at his battles. In the Battle of Badr, Rasulullah, when there were duos before the open battle, when there were duos, Rasulullah chose 3 from his family members. 2 of them were Hamza and Ali ibn Abi Talib. And from the other side, Shayba wa Utbah, the father of Hind and the brother of Hind, the mother of Muawiyah, the wife of Abu Sufyan. There was a duo. Amir al-Mu'mineen killed 2 of them, and the third, him and Hamza killed together. That day, the Muslims killed 70 of the mushrikeen. Half of them were killed by the sword of Ali ibn Abi Talib, 35. And the other 35, Ali ibn Abi Talib also helped them kill. And those who were taken captives, prisoners of war, half of them were taken captives by Ali ibn Abi Talib. Amir al-Mu'mineen was relentless. He was a dedicated soldier to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the Battle of Uhud, when the mushrikeen came to seek revenge from the Muslims for Badr, Amir al-Mu'mineen stood by the side of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He would circle around Amir al-Mu'mineen, causing the enemies to flee, not allowing harm to reach Amir al-Mu'mineen. That day, Amir al-Mu'mineen, some historians say, had over 90 injuries, all in the front portion of his body. None were in his back. That means he never gave his enemy to the, never gave his back to the enemy, I'm sorry. Over 90 injuries. While the other Sahaba, some other Sahaba, they fled. One of them fled for 3 days. He was nowhere to be seen for 3 days. Yet Amir al-Mu'mineen fought and fought and fought until he broke his sword. He came to Rasulullah. He said, إِنَّ الْمَرْءَ لَيُقَاتِلُ بِسَيْفِهِ وَهَذَا سَيْفِي قَدْ انْكِسَرَ. A man fights with his sword, and here's my sword broken. Jibreel comes with a special sword. Dhul Faqar. He gives it to Amir al-Mu'mineen. He gives it to Rasulullah. Rasulullah gives it to Amir al-Mu'mineen. And he comes back to the battle and he fights. Jibreel shouts, لا فتى إلا علي لا سيف إلا ذو الفقار. Amir al-Mu'mineen enters the battlefield. He fights while everyone ran away. Jibreel comes down to Rasulullah. He tells him, Ya Rasulullah, إن العلي الأعلى يقرؤك السلام. Allah sends His peace and blessings upon you. And He says, إن هذه هي المواساة. This is sympathy. This is support. Meaning what Ali ibn Abi Talib is doing. Not what others did. Meaning look at the support and the stand and the position and the sympathy of Ali ibn Abi Talib. While everyone ran away, look at who stood beside you. Rasulullah said, yes, I know. لأنه مني وأنا من. Because he's from me and I am from him. Jibreel said, وأنا منكما. And I am from amongst you. This is Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is in Uhud. As for the battle of Khandaq, the ditch, the Muslims had dug a ditch around Medina so that the enemy would not come and attack them in the middle of the night and attack them by surprise. They dug a ditch. Amr ibn Abd Wudd al-Amiri jumped with his horse across the ditch. The Battle of Ahzab, Battle of Khandaq. Very long story. I'm summarizing. Amr ibn Abd Wudd, a fierce champion, known among the Arab, known during the days of Jahiliyyah, he came and he started to challenge the Muslims. Who will fight me? Who will fight me? Rasulullah stood. He said, who will fight Amr? وَأَنَا أَضْمِنْ لَهُ الْجَنَّةِ. I guarantee him heaven. No one stood except Ali ibn Abi Talib. Rasulullah told him, sit down, Ya Ali. مَنْ لِعَمْرِ وَأَنَا أَضْمِنْ لَهُ الْجَنَّةِ. Who will fight Amr? And I promise him, I guarantee him heaven. No one stood other than Ali. A third time, Rasulullah told Ali ibn Abi Talib, he told him, Ya Ali, do you know who this is? إِنَّ هَذَا عَمْرِ. This is Amr ibn Abd Wudd, a champion, a warrior, a savage. Everyone knew. He said, Ya Rasulullah, wa ana Ali. If he is Amr and I am Ali. Amir al-Mu'mineen went. He went. When Amir al-Mu'mineen went, Rasulullah said a statement that is worth $1 million. He said, خَرَجَ الْإِيمَانُ كُلُّهُ إِلَى الشِّرْكِ كُلِّهِ. Faith in its entirety, all of faith has went to meet all of shirk. It's a fight of good versus evil, faith versus disbelief, monotheism versus polytheism. Amir al-Mu'mineen represents Iman. خرج الإيمان كله. All of faith has come out to fight. Against whom? All of shirk. Amir al-Mu'mineen stood with Amr. Amr told him, Ya Ali, your father was a friend of mine. I don't want to kill you. Amir al-Mu'mineen said, but I want to kill you. Amr said, Ya Ali, when your cousin sent you, wasn't he afraid that I will raise you with my spear and lift you between the earth and the sky, and you won't be considered not among the dead and not among the alive? He said, Amir al-Mu'mineen replied, he said, when my cousin sent me, he was sure that I will kill you. Amir al-Mu'mineen told him, in return, I invite you to Islam. I invite you to accept the Shahadatain. He said, Amr said, to carry these mountains is lighter for me than to say the Shahadatain. Means it's so heavy upon me to do. He said, okay. Come down from your horse. I'm a foot soldier. Come down from your horse and fight me like a man. Amr came down and he cut off the legs of his horse to show what a savage he is. Amir al-Mu'mineen and Amr ibn Abd Wud engaged in a battle. There was dust. When the dust settled, Muslims saw Amr ibn Abd Wud is sitting on the chest of Amr, about to finish him off. And then they saw Amir al-Mu'mineen stand, walk around, and then come back and cut off the head of Amr. He brought the head to Rasulullah. The Sahaba came and asked Amir al-Mu'mineen that, why didn't you cut off his head? Why did you get up and walk around? He said, because he spat in my face. I did not want to kill him out of anger, out of vengeance. I wanted to kill him for the sake of Allah. And so I did. Rasulullah that day, he said his famous quote, ضربة علي يوم الخندق أفضل من عبادة الثقلين. That the strike of Ali on the day of the ditch is greater than the worship of the two creations, humans and jinn. And as for Khaybar, in that battle, on the first day, Rasulullah gave the banner to one of the Sahaba. He went and came back. He couldn't do anything. He couldn't open the door of Khaybar. The hadith says, يُجَبِّنُ أَصْحَابَهُ وَيُجَبِّنُونَ. He would call his soldiers weak and jaban. He would call them cowards. Cowards, not weak. Cowards. And they would say, you're the coward. The second day, Rasulullah sent another Sahaba, another of the Sahaba. He came back, يُؤَبِّنُ أَصْحَابَهُ وَيُؤَبِّنُونَ. He would tell them, it's your fault we couldn't be victorious. They tell him, it's your fault that we couldn't be victorious. Until Rasulullah said, لَأُعْطِيَنَّ الرَّايَةَ غَدًا. I will give the banner to someone tomorrow. لِرَجُلٍ. رَجُلًا. I will give it to a man. يُحِبُّ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولَهُ. He loves Allah and His Messenger. وَيُحِبُّهُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. And Allah and His Messenger also love him. كَرَّارًا غَيْرَ فَرَّارٍ. He's the one who enters the battlefield and does not run away. يَفْتَحُ اللَّهُ عَلَى يَدِهِ. And Allah shall bring victory on his hand. The next day, Rasulullah, when he woke up, he asked, أين Ali? Where is Ali? They told him, Ya Rasulullah, Ali can't open his eyes. Inna Aliyan Armadun. Ali can't open his eyes. He said, bring him. They brought Amir al-Mu'mineen. He couldn't see, he had to be guided. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Rasulullah took some of his saliva, he put it on the eyes of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He opened it. He took the banner and entered the battlefield. He went to the door of Khaybar. He brought down the door. They went inside, and their king, Marhab, was split in half by Amir al-Mu'mineen. When was it that Amir al-Mu'mineen wasn't victorious? When was it that Amir al-Mu'mineen didn't make Rasulullah proud? In one battle, Ghazwat Tabuk, Rasulullah kept Amir al-Mu'mineen in Medina. He didn't participate in the battle. Maybe one or two battles that Amir al-Mu'mineen did not participate in. Otherwise, he participated in all of the battles. And in this battle, Rasulullah kept Amir al-Mu'mineen in Medina. Amir al-Mu'mineen asked, why? You know that I'm a warrior. He told him, أما ترضى أن تكون مني بمنزلة هارون من موسى إلا أنه لا نبي بعدي. Do you not want to be to me like Aaron was to Moses, except there is no prophet after me? He kept him. And Rasulullah used every position, every opportunity to mention the virtues of Amir al-Mu'mineen. أقضاكم علي. أعلمكم علي, أشجعكم علي. The most knowledgeable amongst you is Ali. The most judicial amongst you is Ali. The bravest among you is Ali. علي مع الحق والحق مع علي. Ali is with the truth and truth is with Ali. يدور معه حيث أينما دار. The truth will always be with Ali. And he would say, أنا مدينة العلم وعلي بابها. I am the city of knowledge and Ali is the gate. فمن أراد المدينة فليأتها من بابها. He who wants to enter the city of knowledge has to come through the gate. Rasulullah used every opportunity to show the virtues of Ali ibn Abi Talib, to speak in the name of Ali ibn Abi Talib, to declare to the ummah that your successor is Ali ibn Abi Talib. He didn't waste an opportunity. It was always Ali ibn Abi Talib that was with him. One day, a group of perhaps Jews came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and told him, it's a long story, long conversation. They asked him, who is the Khalifa after you? Allah reveals this verse, إِنَّمَا وَلِيُّكُمُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Surely your leaders are Allah and your Prophet and those who believe. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةِ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَهُمْ رَاكِعُونَ. Those who believe, those who pray and give zakat while they are in the state of ruku'. Rasulullah went to the masjid as ordered by Jibreel. They saw a beggar coming outside with a ring. They told him, who gave you this ring? He said, ذاك الفتى الراكع. That young man was performing ruku'. They saw that it was Ali ibn Abi Talib. In every position, Rasulullah would show the virtues of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He didn't waste a single opportunity. And in Hajjat al-Wada', when Rasulullah was returning from Hajj, from Mecca to Medina, he stood in the area of Ghadir Khumm on that very hot day. The Sahaba that had went ahead, he had told them to come back. And those that were behind, he waited for them. It was so hot that the Sahaba had to cover their heads to protect themselves from the sun. Rasulullah stood and gave that powerful sermon of his. And then he asked, من أولى بالمؤمنين من أنفسهم? Who has authority over Muslims, even authority over themselves? قالوا الله ورسوله. They said, Allah and His Messenger. And then he said, فَمَنْ كُنْتُ مَوْلَاهُ. He whom who I had authority over, فَعَلِيٌّ مَوْلَاهُ. Ali has authority over him. Whom I was his commander and I had authority over, then Ali is his commander. Allahumma wali man wala, wa'adi man ada, wansur man nasarah, wakhdhul man khadala. Oh Allah, support who supports him, and neglect those who neglect him. And then the Muslims stood in one line, all together, over 100,000 of the Sahaba, to congratulate Amir al-Mu'mineen and to give him bay'ah, allegiance. Rasulullah would come to the house of Ali ibn Abi Talib and Fatimah al-Zahra, knock the door before entering. Rasulullah would never enter without knocking. And he would say, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. The final moments of Rasulullah's life were in the lap of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And he would speak to him. The hadith says that Rasulullah asked Amir al-Mu'mineen to come close for not anyone to hear. And then his soul departed in the lap of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen was later asked, what did he tell you? He said, فَتَحَ لِي عَلَّمَنِي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ أَلْفَ بَابٍ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ. Rasulullah taught me 1,000 doors of knowledge. يَفْتَحُ لِي مِنْ كُلِّ بَابٍ أَلْفَ بَابٍ. And he would open from each door 1,000 doors. 1,000,000 doors of knowledge. Rasulullah departed and he's in the lap of Amir al-Mu'mineen. While all the other Sahaba, they went to Saqifat Bani Sa'ida to decide who the Khalifa is after Allah had decided who the Khalifa is. After he had decided who the Khalifa is, Allah, they gathered in Saqifat Bani Sa'ida. Rasulullah took care of Rasul. Amir al-Mu'mineen took care of Rasulullah. He washed him. He shrouded him. He prayed over his body. And he buried him. While all the other Sahaba were busy with something else. And they didn't wait. They didn't wait a week or 2 weeks. On the same day or the day after, they came to the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Fatima al-Zahra, threatening to barge in the house, to burn down the house, dragging Ali ibn Abi Talib in ropes, bringing him to the masjid to get the bay'ah from him by force. And this is what happened. Amir al-Mu'mineen sat in his house, his right taken away from him, the Khilafah taken away from him. And this was not just an injustice to Ali ibn Abi Talib, this was an injustice to the entire Muslim world. Because all the Muslims, they couldn't benefit from the wisdom of Amir al-Mu'mineen and the knowledge of Amir al-Mu'mineen and the leadership of Amir al-Mu'mineen and the justice of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And so the first ruler went, and the second, and the third. But meanwhile, throughout all of this time, they were in need of Ali ibn Abi Talib. They were in need of him. Time and time again, they would come to him. And Amir al-Mu'mineen was not selfish. He did it for the greater good. He would give them the knowledge that they needed from him. And hence, the second Khalifa would say, لا أبقاني الله لمعضلة ليس لها أبو الحسن لولا علي لهلك عمر. If it wasn't for Ali, Umar would have perished. May Allah not keep me to a problem that Ali ibn Abi Talib, that Abu al-Hasan cannot fix. And so Amir al-Mu'mineen was needed time and time again. They took the Khilafah from him, but they came to him when in need of guidance. Until the third Khalifa passed away, they came to Amir al-Mu'mineen. After 25 years of solitude, after 25 years of boycotting Amir al-Mu'mineen, of oppressing Amir al-Mu'mineen, they finally came to him. And Amir al-Mu'mineen came to Khilafah. Although he was the Imam, he was already the Imam, whether they gave him the seat of Khilafah or they didn't. Amir al-Mu'mineen was the Imam ordained by Allah Azza wa Jal and by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But what happened when Amir al-Mu'mineen came? 5 years, less than 5 years, 4 months, 4 years, and maybe 9 months, 10 months that Amir al-Mu'mineen was officially the Khalifa, but it was spent in civil wars. Did they let Amir al-Mu'mineen reform? Did they let him work? Did they let him rule in justice? They fought Amir al-Mu'mineen. They fought him. Muawiyah from Damascus, who led a war against Amir al-Mu'mineen. And there was from Medina, the wife of Rasulullah, who led a battle against Amir al-Mu'mineen, along with the help of Talha and Zubayr. And then the problem of the Khawarij. 3 battles that were forced upon Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen did not want to spill the blood of Muslims. He wanted peace, yet he was forced. These battles were enforced upon Amir al-Mu'mineen. He had no other choice. As-Saffin, Al-Jamal, and Al-Nahrawan. Finally, you see, Amir al-Mu'mineen was too good for this dunya, for this life. They couldn't handle to see Amir al-Mu'mineen alive until Ibn Muljam did what he did, and he committed that great massacre, that great murder, that great crime that can never be forgiven. And he didn't allow the world to benefit from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, Ali ibn Abi Talib. What can we say about this great individual? whom non-Muslims have been inspired by him not less than Muslims themselves. If we read the books, the articles, the poems written about Amir al-Mu'mineen by non-Muslims, by Christians, or by non-Shi'as, we will see how much they were affected by Amir al-Mu'mineen and how many lives he inspired. He inspired and he continues to do so until today. Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alayka ya awwal madlumin في الإسلام. السلام عليك يا أصبر الصابرين. السلام عليك وعلى أبنائك الطاهرين. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.
شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات